Oh, hey folks, elder law care attorney Patrick Kelleher coming to you from elderlawcare.com. Great question today from a subscriber to our YouTube channel. Hey Patrick, how to avoid common mistakes with estate planning with IRAs. Folks, qualified retirement accounts make up the majority of the wealth of a human being in America, right? So you don't want to mess it up. The stakes are way too high. I'm going to give you 5 common mistakes from my experience, which could be very, very problematic for you and your loved ones that you want to benefit from your IRA or from your 401k. Because folks, that is your legacy. So let's get to work. Number 1, folks, this should go without saying, you need to name a beneficiary to your IRA, your 401k. And that could be plural as well, because you want to have a primary beneficiary, that could be your spouse, and then you want to have contingent beneficiaries, that could be your kids, or maybe your grandkids, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, okay, because that falls under one of the common mistakes. Keep in mind, this is for IRAs we're talking about. 401ks fall under the ERISA rules, where you need to name your spouse, if you're married, as your primary beneficiary, with the exception if they waive it in writing, okay? IRAs are a little bit different. 401ks are typically employer-sponsored retirement plans. And then when you retire, it's typically converted over to an IRA, which stands for what? It's an acronym which stands for Individual Retirement Account, because it has to be in your name. I see a lot of people naming a primary beneficiary, and I'll ask them, well, Bill and Mary, do you have a backup contingent beneficiary? And a lot of occasions, there is no backup beneficiary. So what's going to happen if they both get hit by the bus of life and there's no beneficiary? You need to know this. Where's that asset going to end up? Getting bit by the metaphorical first-headed monster, which is probate court. This is what we want to avoid, folks. Why do we want to avoid probate court? Because it costs too much, it takes too long. So name a beneficiary, okay? Primary beneficiary and then contingent beneficiaries, okay? Another common mistake that I see, after a divorce, people are failing to update their beneficiaries, because once a divorce action is filed, typically most courts will have a freeze on all assets where you're no longer able legally to change the beneficiary on that asset, especially if it's a spouse, right? So be mindful of that. My experience, folks will be long divorced, but forget to update their beneficiary, not just on IRAs and qualified retirement accounts, but I've seen other assets like life insurance and things of that nature. And then if something unfortunate happens, your ex, your former spouse, could be the named beneficiary on your asset. Question is, would you want that? Likely not. I've seen that more than once. So you need to be mindful of that, and you need to get written verification that you changed and updated your beneficiary. That's a common mistake, right? Because the financial company is just going to go by the records at hand, and they're going to cut a check typically to that person they have in their records. And it could be a former spouse. This is important. And this is kind of tied into this as well. If you're changing employment, say you have an IRA, employment change, or even the same employer with a different retirement administrator. So you're working for a company for many years and your retirement is with one of the big retirement companies. And then your employer a year later changes over to another big retirement company. From my experience, this has happened. The custodial management administrative firm in charge of those financial assets, if it's being transferred over from company A to company B, sometimes the communication is not what it should be, and they do not share the updated beneficiary designation with them. That could be catastrophic as well. So you want to make sure that you communicate with those folks. You want to make sure that you again get written verification, folks. That's the key. That's your responsibility, to get written verification, folks. Very, very important.